The shields flickered and died. Commander Zelkara watched the display with growing horror as another defense platform exploded into silent fire. The Crythian warships kept coming, wave after wave of dark metal and burning weapons. They filled the space around Viridian Prime like a swarm of angry insects. Status report, Zelkara clicked through her mandibles. Her voice stayed calm even though fear crawled through her chest. We have lost another cruiser, the tactical officer reported. His crystalline body pulsed with stressed colors. The Deepkin squadron is down to 3 ships. Hull breaches on 17 vessels. Sir, we cannot hold. The Zeltar commander looked at the tactical display. Red markers showed enemy ships. There were hundreds of them. Blue markers showed friendly forces. There were so few now. The math was simple and terrible. They were losing. The Crythian Dominion did not believe in elegant warfare. They believed in overwhelming force. They came with more ships, more guns, more soldiers than anyone could fight. 40 star systems had fallen to them using this same strategy. Viridian Prime would be 41. All ships continue evasive patterns, Zelkara ordered. Focus fire on their heavy cruisers. Make them pay for every meter of space. The Coalition fleet obeyed. Ships from 3 different species moved in coordination. The insectoid Zeltar vessels were fast and agile. The Luminian crystal ships could redirect energy with their unique technology. The Deepkin water-bearing craft excelled at close combat. Together they had won many victories, but not today. Today they faced too many enemies. A Crythian battle group broke through the defensive line. Their weapons tore into a Luminian carrier. The beautiful crystal structure shattered into 1,000,000 pieces, each one catching the light of the distant sun. 3,000 souls died in an instant. Civilian transports are still evacuating the planet, another officer reported. They need 20 more minutes. Zelkara felt the weight of those words. 20 minutes. An eternity in battle. A heartbeat in the span of life. How many would die to buy those 20 minutes? Then we give them 20 minutes, she said firmly. All ships form defensive wall Alpha 7. Protect those transports with everything we have. The remaining coalition ships moved into position. They placed themselves between the massive Crythian fleet and the fleeing civilian vessels. On the planet below, millions of people looked up at the sky and prayed to their various gods. They watched the lights of battle and hoped to live another day. War Master Thulkor sat in his command throne and watched the tactical display with satisfaction. The pathetic coalition defense was crumbling. Soon he would claim another system for the Dominion. Soon he would add another victory to his long list. Their fleet is down to 30% combat effectiveness, his second-in-command reported. They are forming a defensive position around the evacuation transports. Noble, Thulkor said with amusement in his voice. And pointless. Send in battle groups 7 through 12. Crush them. 6 dozen Crythian warships accelerated toward the coalition line. Their weapons charged with deadly energy. The coalition ships fired back desperately. A few Crythian vessels took damage. One exploded. But the others kept coming. Commander Zelkara watched the enemy approach. She calculated firing solutions, shield redistribution, crew casualties. The numbers all told the same story. This was the end. Sir, we are receiving a transmission, the communications officer said suddenly. Multiple coalition channels. It is a general distress call. Broadcast it, Zelkara ordered. Maybe someone will remember we fought here. The message went out across all frequencies. It carried the story of the coalition's last stand at Viridian Prime. It told of bravery and sacrifice. It begged for any friendly forces to come. But everyone knew there were no reinforcements. The nearest coalition fleet was 3 days away. The Crythian ships opened fire. Coalition vessels began to die. One by one, the brave defenders fell silent. The blue markers on the tactical display turned gray. Zelkara prepared to give the evacuation order. The civilian transports needed 5 more minutes, but there was no point in everyone dying. Her crew had done enough. They had earned the right to survive if they could. Then something impossible happened. Sir, sensor contact, the tactical officer shouted. Unknown vessel entering the system. Coordinates 74 Mark III. Zelkara turned to look at the display. A new marker appeared at the edge of the system. It was moving fast, coming out of FTL with a signature she had never seen before. Identification, she demanded. Working on it, sir. The ship is broadcasting an IFF code. It says, the officer stopped and stared at his console. It says it is from Earth. The ship identifies itself as UTSS Indomitable. The command center went silent. Everyone stared at the display. Earth, the humans, that small species that had only joined the galactic community 5 years ago, the ones with only 3 colony worlds and a small defense force. What were they doing here? Size analysis? Zelkara asked. The vessel is smaller than expected, sir. Approximately the size of a heavy cruiser. Single ship. No escort. A single human ship. One vessel against the Krithian armada. It made no sense. War Master Thulkor saw the new contact appear on his display. He leaned forward with interest. What is that? He demanded. Human vessel, War Master. Records indicate this is a military ship from Earth. They are hailing us. Let me hear it, Thulkor ordered. He was curious what this tiny species would say. The communication channel opened. A human voice spoke. It was female, calm, and somehow confident despite the situation. This is Captain Elena Kursk of the United Terran Star Force's ship Indomitable. To all coalition forces, break off and regroup behind our position. We will handle the Krithian fleet. Silence filled both command centers. On the Zeltar flagship, officers stared at each other in confusion. Handle the Krithian fleet, one ship? Then the human spoke again, this time directly addressing the Krithians. Krithian Dominion fleet, this is your only warning. Power down your weapons and withdraw from this system. If you continue hostile actions, we will defend our allies with lethal force. Thulkor began to laugh. The sound filled his command center. His officers joined in, amused by the absurd arrogance of this minor species. Respond to them, Thulkor ordered when he stopped laughing. Tell them they face 500 warships. Tell them to run home before we add humanity to our list of conquered species. The message was sent. The human ship did not respond with words. Instead, it accelerated directly toward the Krithian fleet. The single vessel moved with surprising speed, heading straight into the teeth of the armada. Commander Zelkara watched the human ship approach. She did not know whether to admire their courage or mourn their imminent destruction. But something made her follow the human captain's orders. All coalition ships fall back, she commanded. Reform behind the human vessel. The surviving coalition forces withdrew. They watched as the tiny human ship positioned itself between them and 500 Krithian warships. The battlefield seemed to hold its breath. On board the Indomitable, Captain Elena Kursk sat in her command chair. Her crew worked at their stations with focused intensity. They were frightened, they were outnumbered, but they were human and they had come to fight. All stations report ready, Captain, her first officer said. Elena nodded. She looked at the display showing the massive enemy fleet. Then she smiled, fierce and determined. Good, she said quietly. Activate Ragnarok Protocol. Let's show them what humans can do. The UTSS Indomitable cut through space like a blade. Its hull was dark gray metal, scarred from previous battles. To the watching coalition forces, it looked small and fragile, compared to the massive Krithian dreadnoughts. But there was something in the way it moved that caught attention. It did not hesitate. It did not slow down. It moved like a predator that had found prey. Captain Elena Kursk studied the tactical display in front of her. 500 enemy ships, her crew of 300 humans. The math did not favor them. But math had never stopped humanity before. Sensor analysis, she ordered. Lieutenant Chen spoke from his station. Krithian fleet is maintaining standard battle formation. Heavy cruisers in front, destroyers on the flanks, carriers in the rear. They are not adjusting for our presence, Captain. They do not see us as a threat. Elena smiled without humor. Good, keep it that way. Weapons, status. All systems green, Captain, replied Commander Jackson. Railguns charged. Missile tubes loaded. Nanite swarms ready for deployment. Electronic warfare suite online. We are ready to dance. Around the bridge, her crew worked with calm efficiency. They came from every corner of Earth. Chen was from Beijing. Jackson's family came from Detroit. Communications officer Maria Rodriguez grew up in Buenos Aires. Navigator Kofi Mensah was born in Lagos. Tactical officer Yuki Tanaka called Tokyo home. They spoke different languages, followed different traditions, believed different things. But here now they were one. They were human. They were crew. Captain receiving transmission from Coalition flagship, Rodriguez reported. Commander Zelkara wants to speak with you. Put it through. The Zeltar commander's face appeared on the screen. Her insect features were hard to read, but her voice carried clear concern. Captain Kursk, we appreciate your courage, but this is suicide. The Krithian fleet will destroy you in minutes. Please withdraw while you can. Elena understood the commander's fear. The coalition species had fought the Crithians many times. They knew the enemy's strength. But they did not know humans. Commander, my government sent me here to protect our allies, Elena replied. We received your distress call. We came as fast as we could. Now we are going to do what we promised. We are going to stop them. How? Zelkara asked. The question was desperate. You are one ship. One human ship, Elena corrected gently. That makes a difference. Trust us, Commander. Keep your forces back. We will need room to work. She closed the channel before Zelkara could argue further. There was no time for long explanations. The Crithian fleet was moving. On the Crithian flagship, War Master Thulkor watched the human ship approach with growing annoyance. The arrogance of this species irritated him. They needed to learn their place in the galaxy. He would teach them. What do we know about human military capabilities? He asked his intelligence officer. Very little, War Master. They have only recently developed FTL technology. Their fleet is small. Perhaps 50 vessels total across all classes. They have never fought in a major engagement. By all reports, they should not be a significant threat. And yet they challenge 500 of our finest warships. Thulkor mused. Perhaps they are simply foolish. Or perhaps they have something we do not know about. Deploy scout ships. Scan that vessel. I want to know what weapons it carries. 6 Crithian scout ships broke formation and accelerated toward the Indomitable. They were fast, lightly armed vessels designed to gather information. Their sensors focused on the human ship, trying to penetrate its hull and identify its systems. On the Indomitable, alerts began to sound. Enemy scouts incoming, Tanaka reported. They are running active scans on us. Let them look, Elena said calmly. Jackson, when they get within 10,000 kilometers, give them something to scan. Yes, Captain. Jackson's fingers danced across his console. Priming Surprise Package 1. The Crithian scouts drew closer. Their sensors worked to analyze the human ship. What they saw confused them. The power readings were strange, fluctuating in ways that did not match known technology. The hull composition was unusual, some kind of enhanced alloy. The weapon signatures were. Multiple warnings suddenly screamed across their displays. Weapons lock, one scout pilot shouted. They are targeting us! Before the scouts could react, the Indomitable fired. But it did not use conventional weapons. Instead, it released a cloud of something that looked like metallic dust on sensors. The cloud spread rapidly, engulfing all 6 scout ships. What is that? Thulkor demanded. Report. Unknown particles, War Master. They are attaching to our ships. They are eating through the hulls. On the scout vessels, nanite swarms went to work. Microscopic machines, each smaller than a grain of sand, covered the ships in seconds. They did not destroy the vessels. They did something worse. They disabled them. Engines died. Shields flickered out. Weapons went offline. Communications cut to static. In 30 seconds, 6 Crithian scouts became 6 pieces of floating debris, their crews alive but helpless. Impossible, Thulkor whispered. He had never seen technology like this. Elena watched the results with satisfaction. That got their attention. Chen, start running pattern Delta 7. Keep us moving. Make them work for target locks. Yes, Captain. Engaging evasive maneuvers. The Indomitable began to move in ways that made coalition observers question their sensors. It twisted and turned with acceleration that should have crushed the crew. It performed barrel rolls and sudden direction changes that violated standard tactical doctrine. Human pilots flew by instinct as much as computer calculation. The ship became unpredictable, impossible to track with automated targeting systems. Thulkor felt the first touch of uncertainty. This was not how space combat worked. Ships moved in predictable patterns based on physics and optimal firing solutions. But the human ship moved like it was dancing, like it was alive. All battle groups advance and destroy that ship, he ordered. Use overwhelming firepower. I want it turned to atoms. 50 Crithian warships broke formation and charged at the Indomitable. Their weapons charged. Missile tubes opened. Energy cannons powered up. They prepared to unleash enough firepower to crack a small moon. On the Indomitable, Elena watched them come. Her heartbeat was steady. Her hands did not shake. She had trained for this her entire life. The Earth military had studied every battle in human history. They learned from ancient warriors and modern soldiers. They understood something the galactic species had forgotten. War was not just math and technology. It was will. It was courage. It was the refusal to surrender. "Captain, they are charging weapons," Tanaka reported. "Estimate 45 seconds to firing range." Acknowledged. "All hands brace for combat." Rodriguez opened a channel to the Crethian fleet. "All frequencies." "Channel open, Captain." Elena stood from her chair. She looked at her crew, saw their trust and determination. Then she spoke, knowing both friends and enemies would hear her words. "This is Captain Elena Kursk of Earth. You came to conquer. You came to destroy. You thought you faced weak prey. But you are wrong. You face humanity. We do not kneel. We do not surrender. We fight until we win or until we die. There is no third option." She paused, letting her words sink in. Then she gave the order that would change galactic history. "All hands, this is the captain. We are going in. Activate Ragnarok Protocol. Authorization Kursk Alpha 7. Let's show these bastards why you do not threaten human friends." Across the ship, systems came online that the galaxy had never seen. Weapons that human engineers designed in secret. Tactics that human military minds created in war games and simulations. Technology that combined human creativity with a simple philosophy. If you cannot be stronger, be smarter. If you cannot be bigger, be faster. If you cannot win fairly, cheat better than anyone else. The Indomitable surged forward. It stopped evading and started attacking, and the battlefield exploded into chaos. War Master Thulkor watched his tactical display with growing shock. The human ship was moving into his fleet, not away from it. It was charging directly at 50 warships like a warrior with a death wish. This made no tactical sense, then he understood. Humans did not fight like other species. They fought to win, and they would do anything to win. The first exchange of fire lit up the darkness of space. The Crithian ships fired hundreds of weapons. The Indomitable fired back. But it did not try to match firepower with firepower. Instead, it released chaos. Missiles that split into dozens of smaller missiles. Electronic attacks that turned enemy sensors blind. Kinetic rounds fired at such speeds they punched through shields like paper, and the Crithian formation began to break. The first Crithian battlecruiser died in fire and silence. The Indomitable had put 3 railgun rounds through its reactor core at near light speed. The ship simply came apart, its hull tearing like paper. Debris spread in all directions, forcing nearby Crithian vessels to break formation or risk collision. "One down," Commander Jackson reported. His voice was steady, professional. Inside, his heart raced with combat adrenaline. Targeting solutions for the next 4 locked in. Captain Elena Kursk gripped her command chair. The ship shook as Crethian weapons hammered against their shields. Red warning lights flashed. Damage reports scrolled across her display. But they were still alive. They were still fighting. "Keep firing. Chen, execute attack pattern Wolverine. Take us through their center line." "Captain, that will put us in the crossfire of 20 ships, Chen protested. His voice carried worry, not fear. He trusted his captain, but the math was brutal. "Yes, it will," Elena agreed. "Which means they will have to be careful not to shoot each other." "We will not." Fire at will, all weapons. The Indomitable dove into the heart of the Crithian formation. It was the last thing the enemy expected. Standard military doctrine said to maintain distance, use superior range, avoid close combat where you could be surrounded. Humans had read that doctrine. Then they threw it away and wrote their own. The ship spun on its axis while moving forward at full speed. Weapons fired in all directions. Missiles launched in spiraling patterns. Railguns tracked targets faster than computer prediction models could follow, because human gunners used instinct and experience, not just math. The Indomitable became a whirlwind of destruction, and the Crithian ships found themselves in a nightmare. "They are firing on each other," a Crithian weapons officer shouted. "Third battle group just hit ships from 5th battle group." War Master Thulkor slammed his fist on his chair. This was chaos. This was wrong. Space combat was supposed to be organized, controlled, predictable. But the human ship made everything unpredictable. It moved in ways his computers could not calculate. It fired weapons from angles that should not exist. It was everywhere and nowhere at once. "Focus all fire on that ship," he roared. "I do not care about collateral damage. Destroy it now." But his orders came too late. The Indomitable had already penetrated too deep into the formation. Crithian ships hesitated, afraid to fire and hit their own forces. In that hesitation, the human ship killed 3 more vessels. On the Indomitable's bridge, alerts screamed constantly. Shield strength was dropping. Hull breaches on decks 7 and 12. Fire and Engineering Section 3. Casualties mounting. But the crew fought through the damage with grim determination. Shield generators are overheating, reported Engineer Lieutenant Sarah Williams over the comm. Her voice came through static. I can give you maybe 5 more minutes at this power level, Captain. After that, we are naked out here. Understood. Keep them running as long as you can. We are almost through their formation. The ship shuddered as another enemy blast got through the shields. Metal groaned. Someone screamed over the ship-wide channel, then went silent. Direct hit on our port quarter, Jackson reported. His console sparked. He slapped out the small fire with his bare hand. We lost 2 railgun turrets. Missile Pod 6 is offline. Compensate with starboard weapons. Tanaka, find me a weakness in their formation. Tactical Officer Tanaka studied his displays through a cracked screen. Blood ran down his face from a cut on his forehead, but he ignored it. Numbers and patterns filled his vision. He saw how the Crithians moved, where they concentrated fire, where they left gaps. There, Captain. Coordinate 77 Mark 12. If we angle through that vector, we can exit their formation with only 15 ships in direct firing position. Only 15, Elena said with dark humor. Chen, take us through. Maximum speed. The Indomitable surged forward. Its fusion engines burned at 110% capacity, well beyond safe limits. The ship groaned with stress. But it moved fast and deadly, carving a path through the enemy fleet. Commander Zelkara watched from the Coalition flagship with something close to awe. The human ship should be dead. By every tactical calculation she knew, it should have been destroyed in the first 30 seconds of engagement. But it kept fighting. It kept moving. It seemed almost impossible to kill. Analysis, she demanded. Her tactical officer worked frantically at his station. Colors pulsed rapidly through his crystalline body, showing extreme stress. The human ship is using tactics I have never seen, Commander. It fires weapons that confuse our sensors. It moves without regard for optimal flight paths. It seems to deliberately make itself unpredictable. The Crithians cannot establish proper targeting locks. What is their casualty count? The Crithians have lost 17 ships destroyed, another 23 damaged. The human ship, he paused, checking his readings again. The human ship has taken severe damage but remains combat effective. I do not understand how. Zelkara did not understand either, but she was beginning to see something the Crithians had not yet realized. The humans did not fight to win elegant victories. They fought to survive and destroy. They were not warriors. They were something more primal. They were survivors who had turned survival into an art form. The Indomitable burst from the Crithian formation in a shower of debris and weapons fire. The ship's hull was scorched and dented. Atmosphere vented from a dozen breaches, but its engines still burned bright and its weapons still fired. We are through, Chen reported. He was breathing hard, hands shaking slightly from the adrenaline. Clear space ahead. Do not slow down, Elena ordered. Deploy quantum mines on our exit trajectory. Let them follow us into that surprise. From the Indomitable's stern, small objects deployed into space. They looked like simple mines floating harmlessly. But these were human quantum mines, devices that existed partially outside normal space-time. When Crithian ships tried to follow the human vessel, the mines phased into reality and detonated with devastating force. 5 more enemy ships died or suffered crippling damage. War Master Thulkor stared at his tactical display in disbelief. He had lost over 40 ships, 40 to 1 enemy vessel. His crew looked at him with uncertainty. They had never seen their War Master's strategy fail so completely. Status of the human ship? He asked quietly. Damaged but operational, War Master. They are circling back for another attack run. Another run? Thulkor felt something he rarely experienced. Doubt. They are coming back? Yes, War Master. On the Indomitable, Captain Kursk assessed her ship's condition. It was bad. Life support was failing in 3 sections. They had lost 20 crew members with 40 more wounded. Weapon systems were damaged. Shields were down to 30%. By any reasonable standard, they should withdraw and repair. But the civilian transports were still evacuating. The Coalition fleet was still too weak to fight alone. And Elena Kursk was human. Reasonable standards did not apply. Prepare for attack run 2, she ordered. Jackson, we are low on missiles. Switch to kinetic weapons and electronic warfare. Chen, I want you to set up a collision course with their flagship. Every head on the bridge turned to look at her. Captain, a collision course? Chen asked carefully. Not an actual collision, Elena clarified with a slight smile. Just make them think we are crazy enough to ram them. Humans have a reputation for ramming things when we get angry. Let's use that fear. Understanding dawned on Chen's face. He smiled back, fierce and wild. Yes, Captain. Setting ramming course for the Crithian flagship. The Indomitable turned and accelerated back toward the enemy fleet. This time it did not try to be clever or tactical. It simply pointed at the largest Crithian ship and charged at maximum speed. The message was clear and terrifying. The humans would crash their ship into the enemy command vessel if necessary. War Master Thulkor saw the human ship coming directly at him. His sensors confirmed it was on a collision course. His mind tried to process this information. Were they actually going to ram him? It was insane. It was suicide. It was working. Fear touched his mind for the first time in decades of warfare. Evasive maneuvers, he shouted. Get us away from that ship! The Crithian flagship, massive and powerful, began to turn. Other ships in the formation scattered, trying to get out of the way of the apparently suicidal human vessel. The careful formation dissolved into chaos once again. At the last possible moment, the Indomitable veered away from the flagship. But as it passed, it unleashed every weapon it had left. Railguns fired at point-blank range. Nanite swarms covered the flagship's hull. Electronic warfare attacks crashed through the Crithian ship's computer systems. The flagship did not die. It was too large, too well armored, but it was hurt. Its shields failed. Its weapons went offline. Its communications died. The command ship of the Crithian fleet became a floating hulk, dead in space. War Master Thulkor stood in his darkened command center, emergency lights casting red shadows. Sparks fell from damaged systems. His crew struggled to restart critical systems, and through his view screen he watched the human ship circle back for another pass. How? He whispered. How is one ship doing this? His second-in-command had no answer. No one did. The galaxy was learning a new truth that day. Humanity was not stronger than other species. They were not more advanced. They were not superior warriors. But they absolutely refused to lose. And the Indomitable drifted through the debris field, moving slowly now. Smoke leaked from hull breaches. Whole sections of the ship were dark, power lost. Inside, damage control teams worked frantically to keep critical systems online. The ship was dying by centimeters, but it still fought. Captain Elena Kursk sat in her chair, breathing heavily. Her uniform was torn. Burns marked her left arm where a console had exploded. Blood trickled from a cut above her eye. Around her, the bridge crew looked equally battered. But their eyes still held fire. Status report, she said. Her voice was hoarse from shouting orders through the battle. Commander Jackson consulted his damaged console. We have lost 60% of our weapons. Shields are at 15% and failing. Hull breaches on 20 decks. Life support is critical. Engineering says we have maybe 30 minutes of combat capability left. After that, he did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. Casualties? Elena asked quietly. 43 dead. 68 wounded. Medical bay is overwhelmed. Elena closed her eyes for a moment. 43 souls. 43 families back on Earth who would receive terrible news. 43 people who trusted her to bring them home. The weight of command was a physical thing pressing down on her shoulders, but she could not stop. Not yet. The mission was not complete. Chen, what is the status of the civilian evacuation? Last. Transport just cleared the planet's gravity well, Captain. They are jumping to FTL now. All civilians are safe. Elena felt a small spark of relief. At least that was something. The people of Viridian Prime would live. The battle had meaning, even if they died here. Tanaka, enemy fleet status. Tactical Officer Tanaka studied his cracked display. His face was pale from blood loss, but his mind was still sharp. Crithian fleet has lost 207 ships destroyed or disabled. Their flagship is still offline. But Captain? He looked up at her with worried eyes. They still have almost 300 combat-capable vessels. We hurt them badly, but they can still win if they regroup. Elena nodded slowly. She had known this moment would come. They had done incredible damage, but one ship could not defeat an entire armada. The math finally caught up with courage. They needed help. Rodriguez. Hail the Coalition fleet, all channels. Channel open, Captain. Elena stood from her chair, swaying slightly. She gripped the back of the chair for support and looked at the camera that would transmit her face to the Coalition ships. Commander Zelkara, this is Captain Kursk. The civilians are safe. Your people are safe. But we cannot do this alone anymore. My ship is badly damaged. My crew is dying. We have bought you time and shown you the enemy can bleed. Now I am asking you to stand with us. Fight with us. Help us finish what we started. Silence stretched across the comm channels. Elena waited, wondering if her words would be enough. The Coalition species had been beaten down by the Crithians for so long. Fear was a powerful thing. It could make brave beings hesitate. On the Coalition flagship, Commander Zelkara stared at the human captain's image. She saw the damage, the exhaustion, the pain, but she also saw the determination. This human had crossed the galaxy to help strangers. She had fought impossible odds without hesitation. She had shown what was possible when someone refused to accept defeat. Zelkara made her decision. All Coalition ships, this is the commander. We have watched humans fight for us. We have watched them bleed for us. They did not run. They did not surrender. Now it is our turn to show the same courage. All ships charge weapons and prepare for assault. We attack together with our human allies. For Viridian Prime. For the Coalition. For honor. Across the Coalition fleet, cheers erupted. Ships that had been preparing to retreat suddenly surged forward with renewed energy. The Zeltar vessels buzzed with battle excitement. The Luminian crystals glowed with fierce light. The Deepkin warships released their battle cries into the void. The Coalition fleet, inspired by human courage, found its own strength again. They charged at the Crithian fleet together, Coalition and human forces united. War Master Thulkor watched this development from his emergency command station. His flagship was still crippled, but he had transferred command functions to a cruiser. His mind raced, trying to understand what was happening. The Coalition had been defeated. They were broken, ready to surrender. But now they fought with new fury. The human ship had changed everything. One vessel and 300 mad warriors had turned the tide of battle through sheer force of will. War Master, the Coalition fleet is attacking, his tactical officer reported. Their formation is aggressive. They are not fighting defensively anymore. Thulkor understood. The humans had taught the Coalition something dangerous, that winning was possible if you fought without fear. This was a disaster. If word of this defeat spread, other species might find their courage too. All remaining battle groups intercept the Coalition fleet. We will crush them and the human ship together. Use overwhelming firepower. Destroy them all. The Crithian fleet moved to engage. But they moved with less confidence now. They had learned to fear that small human ship. They had learned that number and size did not guarantee victory. The two fleets crashed together in a massive engagement. This time, the fighting was different. The Coalition ships fought with human tactics, being unpredictable and aggressive. They took risks. They made bold moves. They stopped fighting like they expected to lose and started fighting to win. The Indomitable joined the battle despite its damage. Elena would not let her ship sit idle while others fought. The human vessel moved slowly now, but its remaining weapons still fired. Railguns tracked targets, the last missiles launched, and the crew fought with desperate determination. Captain, Crithian battle group moving to flank the Luminian squadron, Tanaka reported. They will be overwhelmed. Elena assessed the situation quickly. The Luminians were some of their best allies. They could not afford to lose them, but her ship was in no condition for another hard fight. She made her decision anyway. Chen, intercept course. Full speed. Captain, our engines are barely functional. If we push them now, we might lose propulsion completely. I know. Do it anyway. The Indomitable turned toward the Crithian battle group. Its engines screamed in protest, but they pushed forward. The ship positioned itself between the enemy and the Luminian vessels, shields raised, weapons armed. Captain, we cannot survive another concentrated attack, Jackson said quietly. It was not protest, just truth. I know, Elena replied, but we are going to try. This is what humans do. We protect our friends even when it costs us everything. The Crithian ships opened fire. Weapons struck the Indomitable's failing shields. The barriers flickered and died. Energy blasts hit the hull directly. Metal screamed. Explosions ripped through the ship. The entire vessel shuddered with impacts. On the bridge, consoles exploded. Fire erupted from damaged systems. Rodriguez was thrown from her station, hitting the wall hard. Chen's console sparked violently, burning his hands. The lights went out, leaving only emergency red glow. Elena was thrown forward. She hit her head on the command console. Blood ran down her face. Everything spun. She tasted copper in her mouth, but she forced herself to stand, gripping the chair with shaking hands. "All hands, this is the captain," she said into the ship-wide comm. Her voice was weak but determined. "We are not done yet. Engineering, I need everything you have left. Weapons, fire at will. We hold this position. We do not run." Throughout the ship, her crew responded. In engineering sections filled with smoke and fire, humans worked to keep the reactors running. In weapons bays with hull breaches and failing life support, gunners loaded and fired. In medical bays overflowing with wounded, doctors worked to save lives even as the ship died around them. The Indomitable continued to fight. It was a wreck, barely more than a floating piece of debris, but it still protected the Luminian ships. It still fired its weapons. It still stood between the enemy and its allies. Thulkor watched the human ship take damage that would destroy any other vessel, but it would not die. It would not stop. And he finally understood what he faced. Humans did not fight like other species. They did not calculate acceptable losses. They did not retreat when logic said to retreat. They fought until they won or until death took them. There was no middle ground. "Focus all remaining ships on the human vessel," he ordered. His voice carried a note of something close to respect. "Kill it with everything we have." But before his ships could concentrate their fire, something unexpected happened. The Coalition fleet, seeing the Indomitable's sacrifice, reacted with fury. They abandoned their own battle plans and surged forward to defend the human ship. Commander Zelkara led the charge. "All ships, protect the Indomitable. They saved us. Now we save them." Coalition vessels threw themselves into the path of enemy fire. The Zeltar frigates used their speed to harass Crithian gunners. The Luminian cruisers redirected energy attacks away from the human ship. The Deepkin vessels rammed into Crithian destroyers in desperate close combat. The battle became chaos, but it was glorious chaos. The Coalition fought not with strategy, but with emotion. Thiru. The siege cannon was humanity's most powerful weapon. It was designed to destroy planetary fortifications from orbit, to crack open asteroid bases, to shatter anything in its path. No one had ever tried to use it against another ship in close combat. The recoil alone could tear the Indomitable apart in its current damaged state. But Captain Elena Kursk did not care about regulations or safety margins anymore. She cared about ending this battle. She cared about saving her crew and her allies. She cared about showing the galaxy that humanity kept its promises. "Siege cannon charging," Commander Jackson reported. His voice was steady despite the pain in his burned hands. Power diverting from all non-essential systems. Life support failing in multiple sections. Medical bay is on emergency power. "Captain, when we fire, we will be completely defenseless." Acknowledged. "How long until full charge?" 90 seconds, Elena nodded. 90 seconds was an eternity in battle. The Crithian fleet would not sit idle while the humans charged their super weapon. They would attack with everything they had. "All crew, this is the captain." Elena's voice echoed through the dying ship. "We are going to fire the siege cannon at the enemy command ship. This will use all our remaining power. After we fire, the Indomitable will be dead in space. Some sections will lose life support entirely, but if we succeed, we will break the enemy's will to fight. We will end this battle. We will save our friends. I am proud to serve with every one of you. Whatever happens next, know that we fought with honor. We fought for something bigger than ourselves." Throughout the ship, her crew prepared for what might be their last moments. In engineering, Lieutenant Williams watched the power levels climb toward critical. Her team worked to keep the failing reactor stable just a little longer. In the weapons bay, gunners loaded the final siege cannon round, a projectile the size of a small vehicle. In medical, Doctors sedated wounded crew members in sections about to lose life support, hoping someone would rescue them before their air ran out. On the bridge, the remaining officers stayed at their stations. Chen's hands were bandaged, but he maintained course toward the enemy command ship. Tanaka calculated firing solutions with one eye swollen shut. Rodriguez, her arm in a makeshift sling, worked to keep communications open. Jackson monitored weapon systems despite the pain that made his vision blur, and Elena stood at the center of it all, fleeting and exhausted but absolutely unbroken. War Master Thulkor saw the energy readings spike on the human ship. His sensors screamed warnings about the power building in the Indomitable's bow. "What is that?" he demanded. "Unknown weapon signature, War Master. Power levels are off our scale. They are pointing it directly at us." Thulkor felt fear transform into fury. These humans had destroyed his fleet, embarrassed his empire, and made him feel weak. Now they dared to threaten him directly. No, he would not allow it. All ships, concentrate fire on the human vessel. Destroy it before it can fire that weapon. Use everything. Nuclear missiles, plasma torpedoes, everything we have. I want that ship turned to dust. 20 Krithian warships turned their weapons on the Indomitable. Every gun, every missile launcher, every weapon system locked onto the damaged human vessel. It was enough firepower to destroy a dozen ships. They fired as one. The space around the Indomitable lit up with explosions. Nuclear missiles detonated against the hull. Plasma torpedoes burned through armor. Energy beams sliced into the ship's structure. The coalition vessels tried to intercept, but there was too much incoming fire. Some got through. The Indomitable shuddered under the assault. Entire sections simply ceased to exist, blown away by the overwhelming firepower. The stern of the ship broke partially away, held only by structural supports. Fire spread through the corridors. The beautiful vessel that had come to save them was being torn to pieces. On the bridge, the impact threw everyone to the floor. The ceiling collapsed. Metal beams fell. Chen screamed as debris crushed his leg. Rodriguez stopped moving, unconscious or worse. Tanaka's console exploded, throwing him backward. Elena hit the floor hard. Something broke inside her chest. She could not breathe properly. Blood filled her mouth. The world turned gray and distant. She could hear the ship dying around her, metal screaming its death song. But she could also see the siege cannon's charge indicator. 80%. 90%. So close. She dragged herself toward the weapons console. Her body did not want to move. Pain made everything dim and confused. But she forced herself forward inch by agonizing inch. She had to reach that console. She had to fire. "Jackson," she gasped. "Jackson, fire the weapon!" Commander Jackson was pinned under a fallen beam. His face was pale with pain and blood loss. But he heard her. He stretched his arm toward his console, fingers reaching for the firing control. Almost there. Just a little more. His fingers touched the button. The UTSS Indomitable fired its siege cannon. The weapon released energy equivalent to a small star. The projectile left the barrel at a significant fraction of light speed, surrounded by a field of directed nuclear plasma. It crossed the distance to the Krithian command cruiser in less than a second. The impact was apocalyptic. The Krithian ship simply ceased to exist. The siege round punched through its shields like they were not there. It struck the hull and detonated inside the vessel. The explosion that followed created a temporary second sun in the Viridian system. Light brighter than anything natural burned away the darkness. The shockwave spread outward, catching nearby ships and throwing them like toys. War Master Thulkor had one moment to realize what was happening. One instant to understand that the humans had actually done it. Then everything became light and fire, and he knew nothing more. The explosion lit up the planet below. People on the surface looked up in wonder and fear at the new star burning in their sky. In the Coalition fleet, every sensor was overwhelmed by the energy discharge. Ships had to look away or risk damaging their optical sensors. And in the aftermath, silence fell. The debris cloud slowly cleared. Where there had been a massive Krithian command cruiser, there was now only expanding gas and floating wreckage. 6 other Krithian ships had been caught in the blast, destroyed or crippled. The remaining enemy vessels drifted, their crews stunned and confused. The Indomitable floated dead in space. Its engines were dark. Its weapons were silent. Its hull was broken and burning. It looked like a corpse, a ghost ship that had given everything in one final attack. Inside the shattered bridge, Elena lay on the floor. She could not move anymore. The pain was distant now, replaced by cold numbness. She knew what that meant. She was dying. Her ship was dying, but they had done it. They had protected their friends. They had shown the galaxy what humans could do. She closed her eyes, ready for the end. "Captain," a voice cut through the fog. "Captain Kursk, stay with me." Hands touched her. Someone was checking her wounds. Elena forced her eyes open. Through blurred vision, she saw Tanaka leaning over her. His face was covered in blood and burns, but he was alive. "Tanaka," she whispered. "The weapon. Did we—" "Direct hit, Captain. The enemy command ship is destroyed. The Crithians have stopped fighting. We did it. We won." Elena felt tears on her face. They had won. Humanity's first major fleet engagement, and they had won. "Casualties?" she asked weakly. "Heavy, Captain. But most of the crew survived. The Coalition is sending rescue ships. We are going to make it." On the tactical displays throughout the battlefield, both sides watched and waited. The Crithian fleet was in complete disarray. Their command structure was gone. Their warmaster was dead. They had lost over half their ships to one human vessel, and a Coalition fleet they had thought beaten. The ranking Crithian officer, a young captain named Velkor, looked at his sensors. He saw the destroyed command ship. He saw the dead human vessel that had caused all this. He saw his proud fleet scattered and broken. He made a decision that would echo through history. "All Crithian ships, this is Acting Commander Velkor. Cease all hostile actions. I am requesting terms of surrender from the Coalition forces." The words hung in the silent void. For the first time in their empire's history, a Crithian fleet was surrendering. It seemed impossible, but the humans had made the impossible real. On the Coalition flagship, Commander Zelkara could barely believe what she was hearing. Surrender. The Crithians, who had never retreated, never stopped, never showed mercy, were surrendering. One human ship had changed everything. "Inform the Crithians that we accept their surrender," Zelkara said quietly. "All ships cease fire. Medical vessels begin rescue operations for both Coalition and Crithian wounded, and someone get rescue teams to that human ship immediately. They saved us all. We will not let them die now." Coalition ships rushed to the Indomitable's aid. Rescue teams cut through the damaged hull to reach trapped crew members. Medical personnel treated the wounded. Engineers worked to stabilize the reactor before it exploded. They found Captain Kursk on the bridge, barely alive but conscious. They found Commander Jackson unconscious but breathing. They found Tanaka trying to help wounded crew members despite his own injuries. They found a crew that had given everything and somehow survived. 3 days later, Elena Kursk woke up in a hospital on Viridian Prime. Her body was wrapped in bandages and medical devices. Everything hurt, but she was alive. The conference hall stretched out like a massive dome, filled with beings from every corner of the galaxy. Ambassador Kreltak of the Vrin Collective sat in his designated seat, his forearms folded across his chest. The metallic scales that covered his body reflected the soft blue lights from above. Around him, delegates from dozens of species chatted, argued, and made deals. This was the Galactic Trade Summit, held every cycle to discuss commerce, treaties, and peaceful cooperation. Kreltak found these meetings boring. The Vrin were warriors first, traders second. But his people needed allies, so here he sat, listening to the Quillian representative drone on about mineral rights in the outer sectors. His secondary eyes watched the room while his primary eyes pretended to pay attention to the speaker. Then the humans arrived. Ambassador Chen walked to the center platform with confident steps. She was small compared to most species in the room, but humans always carried themselves like they owned whatever space they occupied. Her dark hair was tied back and she wore a simple blue suit. Nothing fancy. That was strange. Usually when someone had big news, they dressed to impress. "Thank you for your time, honored delegates," Chen said, her voice clear and steady. "Humanity wishes to announce a new initiative in interspecies cooperation and cultural exchange." The room quieted down. Humans were still relatively new to galactic politics. Only 200 cycles since first contact. Everyone was curious what these strange mammals would do next. Chen smiled. "As many of you know, the United Colonial Navy has been downsizing after the peace accords. We've been decommissioning older vessels to focus on exploration, rather than military expansion. One such vessel was the UCNS Indomitable, a Titan-class supercarrier that served with distinction for 50 years. Kreltak knew of the Indomitable. Every military power in the galaxy knew about it. That ship had ended the border wars single-handedly. It carried 200 fighter craft, enough missiles to crack a moon, and shield systems that could withstand a sustained bombardment from an entire fleet. The Vryn military had studied it extensively, looking for weaknesses. They had found very few. Standard protocol, Chen continued, would be to strip the ship for parts and recycle the materials. But humans have never been very good at following standard protocol. A few species in the audience made sounds that might have been laughter. Humans had a reputation for being unpredictable. Instead, we decided to convert the Indomitable into something the galaxy has never seen before. Chen pressed a button on her tablet, and a massive holographic image appeared above the assembly. It showed the supercarrier, but transformed beyond recognition. Ladies, gentlemen, and honored guests, I present to you the Starbound Palace, the galaxy's premier floating resort and entertainment complex. Silence filled the chamber. Complete absolute silence. Kreltak stared at the hologram. The military vessel he had studied, feared, and respected had been turned into what exactly? The image showed gardens, restaurants, swimming pools, theaters, and what looked like shopping districts. The hangar bays that once held fighters now displayed waterfalls and tropical environments. The weapons arrays were gone, replaced with observation decks and landing pads for civilian shuttles. This is madness, whispered the Thraken delegate sitting near Kreltak. The Thraken were warriors like the Vryn. They understood the value of a warship. To see one destroyed, no worse, transformed into something frivolous. It was almost offensive. Chen seemed to enjoy the shocked reactions. The Starbound Palace offers 5-star accommodations for all species. We have gravity adjustments for every type of physiology, atmosphere-controlled environments, cuisine from 60 different worlds, and entertainment options ranging from zero-gravity sports to classical human opera. The grand opening will be held in 2 weeks at Celestia Prime. More silence. Then slowly delegates began to whisper among themselves. The Quillian representative raised a tentacle. Ambassador Chen, forgive my confusion, but why? A military vessel of that class represents billions in resources and decades of construction. Surely there were more practical uses. Chen's smile grew wider. The Quillian are practical people. So are humans. We looked at the cost of building a new luxury resort station versus converting existing infrastructure. The Indomitable had the size, the power generation capacity, the life support systems, and the structural integrity we needed. Plus, it sends a message. What message? Kreltak found himself asking, his voice carrying across the chamber. Chen turned to face him. That humanity is committed to peace. We're taking our instruments of war and transforming them into instruments of culture and cooperation. The Starbound Palace will be a neutral ground where any species can visit, trade, and build relationships. No weapons, no military presence. Just good food, comfortable beds, and the chance to understand each other better. The Vryn ambassador processed this information. It made sense from a certain perspective. Humans were always talking about symbolism and gestures, but something felt wrong about it. A warrior did not simply put down their sword and walk away. They kept it close, even in times of peace. All delegates are invited to the grand opening, Chen said, distributing holographic invitations to every seat in the chamber. I promise you an experience unlike anything you've encountered before. The Starbound Palace represents the best of human hospitality, creativity, and engineering. The invitation appeared in front of Kreltak. It showed a luxurious suite with a view of stars, a restaurant with elegant lighting and smiling humans in crisp uniforms greeting guests of various species. At the bottom, it read, "Where warriors become guests and strangers become friends." After the session ended, Kreltak stood in the corridor outside, studying the invitation. Other delegates walked past, discussing the announcement. Opinions were mixed. Some thought it was a brilliant idea. Others called it wasteful. The Thraken delegation was clearly offended, treating it as an insult to military tradition. "What do you think?" asked his aide, a younger Vryn named Shalnix. "Will you attend?" Kreltak considered the question. His people needed to understand humanity better. These strange creatures had appeared from nowhere, and within 2 centuries had become a major galactic power. They fought differently, thought differently, and clearly made decisions that defied conventional wisdom. "Yes," he said finally, "I will attend." If nothing else, I want to see what they've done to that ship. The Indomitable was a masterpiece of military engineering. I'm curious to see if humans can create something equally impressive with peace. But as he walked away, a thought nagged at his mind. Humans were clever. Too clever sometimes. They smiled and talked about peace while their eyes calculated every angle. He had studied human history during his diplomatic training. These were beings who had fought each other for thousands of years before reaching the stars. They understood war better than most species ever would. Would humans really disarm such a powerful vessel completely? Or was there something else happening here? Something that the delegates weren't seeing? Kreltak decided he would accept the invitation. He would tour this starbound palace carefully, and he would keep all four of his eyes open. Because when humans said they had turned a supercarrier into a resort, he suspected they weren't telling the complete story. They never did. The shuttle descended toward the massive vessel floating in orbit around Celestia Prime. Kreltak pressed against the viewport, and even his usual stoic demeanor cracked slightly. The Indomitable, now called the Starbound Palace, gleamed in the light of the nearby sun. Fresh white and gold paint covered the hull. Elegant lights traced patterns along what used to be armor plating. Massive windows showed interior spaces where weapon batteries once lived. It looks nothing like the combat footage, Shalnix murmured beside him, equally amazed. The shuttle docked at one of the landing bays. As the doors opened, Kreltak expected the cold industrial feel of a military hangar. Instead, warm air carrying the scent of flowers greeted them. The hangar had been transformed into a grand atrium. Real trees grew from planters. Water flowed down artificial rocks into a crystal-clear pool. Soft music played from hidden speakers. A human woman in an elegant uniform approached, her smile bright and welcoming. Ambassador Kreltak, welcome to the Starbound Palace. I'm Sarah, your hospitality coordinator. If you need anything during your stay, just ask. Thank you, Kreltak managed. His translator implant struggled with the concept of a hospitality coordinator, on what his mind still registered as a warship. Sarah led them through corridors that bore no resemblance to their military past. Plush carpets covered metal floors. Artwork from various worlds hung on walls. They passed restaurants where beings from different species dined together. The smell of cooking food made Kreltak's stomach rumble despite himself. Your suite is on deck 7, Sarah said cheerfully. We've adjusted the gravity and atmosphere to Vrin specifications. The minibar is stocked with beverages suitable for your biology, and the entertainment system has programs in your language. The suite was impressive. Large windows showed the curve of Celestia Prime below. The furniture looked comfortable and expensive. A small kitchen area offered various amenities. This was luxury that rivaled anything Kreltak had experienced. The grand opening gala begins in 3 hours, Sarah said. Formal attire is optional. We want everyone to be comfortable. If you'd like a tour before the event, just contact me through the room's communication panel. After she left, Kreltak examined the room carefully. His eyes traced structural lines in the walls. These walls are reinforced, he said quietly to Shalnix. Look at the support beams. That's not standard civilian construction. Maybe they didn't modify everything, Shalnix suggested. The ship's structure would still be military grade. Perhaps, but Kreltak wasn't convinced. They attended the tour before the gala. A cheerful artificial intelligence named Stella guided groups through various sections of the ship. Her voice was warm and bubbly, describing features with obvious pride. This used to be the primary mess hall, Stella explained as they entered a massive restaurant. Now it's Le Cosmos, our 5-star dining establishment. The head chef trained at Earth's finest culinary institutes and worked with specialists from 20 other worlds to create fusion cuisine that respects all dietary requirements. The space was beautiful. Elegant tables, soft lighting, and a view of the stars through floor-to-ceiling windows. But Kreltak noticed the windows were unusually thick. Blast-resistant, perhaps? They continued to the entertainment decks. There was a zero-gravity sports arena, several theaters showing productions from different cultures, a massive swimming complex with water from Earth's oceans, and even a small shopping district selling crafts from across the galaxy. What's behind that door? Asked a Thraken warrior, pointing to a sealed entrance marked, Authorized Personnel Only. Maintenance and engineering, Stella replied smoothly. Not very exciting, I'm afraid. Just power generators and life support equipment. We keep those areas restricted for safety reasons. But Kreltak noticed something. Stella's voice had changed slightly when answering that question. Less bubbly, more precise. The difference was subtle, but it was there. The gala itself was spectacular. The main event took place in what Stella called the Grand Arena, the former primary hangar bay. Thousands of guests from dozens of species filled the space. Human staff moved through the crowd with practiced efficiency, offering drinks and appetizers. Ambassador Chen gave a speech welcoming everyone. She talked about unity, cooperation, and the beginning of a new era. Other ambassadors spoke about peace and cultural exchange. It was all very diplomatic and proper. Then came the entertainment. Human performers demonstrated various acts. Acrobats performed impossible feats in zero gravity, creating art with their bodies as they floated through the air. Musicians played instruments from Earth, creating sounds that resonated with something deep in Kreltak's chest. Dancers moved with precision and grace. But what caught Kreltak's attention was the staff. They smiled and served with perfect courtesy, but they moved like soldiers. The way they positioned themselves, the way their eyes constantly scanned the room, the subtle communication between them. These weren't ordinary resort workers. Having a good time, Ambassador? Captain Maria Santos appeared beside him. She wore a civilian suit with a name tag that read, Hospitality Director. Captain Santos, Kreltak said. Military records had identified her as the Indomitable's former commanding officer. Or should I say Director Santos? Either works, she smiled. I hope our facilities meet your expectations. They exceed them, he admitted. The transformation is remarkable. However, I must ask, did you truly remove all military systems? Santos sipped her drink calmly. The Starbound Palace is fully licensed as a civilian entertainment complex. All required inspections were passed. Every system meets galactic safety standards for commercial vessels. That's not what I asked. I know. Her smile didn't waver, but it's the answer I'm giving. Please enjoy the evening. As fireworks exploded outside the massive windows, creating brilliant colors against the black of space, Kreltak made mental notes. The decorative panels on some walls had seams that suggested they could retract. The observation deck had a rotation mechanism far too robust for simple sightseeing. The vintage military aesthetic in certain sections looked suspiciously functional. Later that night, back in his suite, Kreltak compiled his observations. Shalnix watched with concern. You think the humans are lying? The aide asked. I think humans are being very careful with their words, Kreltak replied. They've converted this ship into a resort. That much is true. But conversion doesn't necessarily mean removal. It might simply mean concealment. Why would they do that? Kreltak looked out at the stars. Because humans understand something that many species forget. Peace is a wonderful goal, but it requires strength to maintain. A resort that cannot defend itself is a target. But a resort that looks defenseless while actually being the deadliest ship in the sector, that sends a different message entirely. You're speculating? I am, and I hope I'm wrong. But even as he said it, Kreltak knew he wasn't wrong. He had studied humans too long. They were playing a game here, one that was far more complex than anyone realized. The question was, what would happen when that game revealed its true nature? Kreltak had a feeling he would find out soon. Humans didn't build things without purpose, and they certainly wouldn't waste resources converting a supercarrier unless they had a very good reason. He set his tablet aside and tried to sleep. But his mind kept returning to one observation. Every single human staff member wore a uniform with plenty of pockets. And those pockets looked exactly the right size for concealed weapons. Yes, he would definitely keep watching. Something was going to happen. He could feel it in his scales. The third day of the grand opening week started peacefully. Kreltak had just finished an excellent breakfast in one of the smaller restaurants when the alarms began. They weren't loud or frightening. Just a steady chime followed by Stella's voice, still cheerful but with an edge of urgency. Attention guests. We have received a distress call from a nearby vessel. Please remain calm and stay in your current locations while we assess the situation. Around Kreltak, other guests looked concerned but not panicked. The human staff moved quickly through the restaurant, speaking quietly to people, offering reassurance. Their practiced movements seemed too smooth, too rehearsed. Kreltak activated his personal communicator. Shalnix answered immediately. Ambassador, I'm in our suite. What's happening? Unknown. Stay there. I'll investigate. He made his way towards the command center, or what used to be the command center. Now it was called the Operations Coordination Hub, and supposedly managed guest services. The doors were closed, but through the small window, Kreltak could see multiple humans working at stations, their faces serious. A security officer, Quillian, not human, approached him. Ambassador, please return to your suite. This is a restricted area. What's the situation? The Quillian's tentacles writhed with distress. A passenger liner, the Celestial Dawn, has been seized by Korax raiders. They're demanding 5 million credits in ransom. They've already. The officer paused, his skin changing to a darker shade. They've already killed 2 hostages to prove they're serious. Kreltak's scales tightened with anger. The Korax raiders were scum. Pirates who preyed on civilian vessels. How far away? 20 minutes at sublight speed. But protocol says we wait for Galactic security forces. They'll arrive in approximately 3 hours. 3 hours? More hostages will die. I know. But we're a civilian vessel. We have no authority to intervene. The Quillian's voice carried frustration and helplessness. Before Kreltak could respond, the doors to operations opened. Captain Santos stepped out, but she looked different. Gone was the friendly hospitality director. This woman wore a tactical uniform, black and efficient. Her hair was tied back severely. Her eyes were cold and calculating. Ambassador Kreltak, she said crisply, please proceed to the main arena. All guests are being gathered there for safety reasons. You're going to attack the raiders. It wasn't a question. Santos met his gaze steadily. I'm going to ensure the safety of all beings in this sector. Please proceed to the arena. Kreltak didn't move. I'm a military commander. I've led fleets. If you're planning a rescue operation, I want to observe. Santos considered for a moment. Observation only. You interfere and you'll be removed forcibly. Clear? Clear. She led him into operations. The change was shocking. The guest services facade had been stripped away. Wall panels had retracted to reveal multiple tactical displays. Human crew members sat at military-grade workstations. Everything gleamed with the efficiency of a warship bridge. At the center stood a holographic display showing the Celestial Dawn surrounded by 4 Korax raider vessels. Santos studied it with the focused intensity of a predator. Stella, status report. The AI's voice was completely different now. No bubbly enthusiasm, just precise military efficiency. Raider vessels identified as Korax light cruisers. Shields at 70%, weapons armed. The Celestial Dawn reports. 143 passengers and crew held hostage. Raiders have explosives planted at critical points. Time to GSF arrival? 2 hours 53 minutes. Santos nodded. Too long. Begin combat protocols. Authorization, Santos 77 Delta. Acknowledged. Indomitable combat systems activating. The entire ship seemed to shift. Kreltak felt it through his feet. A low hum of power building. Around them, more panels retracted. Displays that had shown restaurant menus now showed weapons targeting systems. The decorative lighting shifted to tactical illumination. Communications, open channel to all guests, Santos ordered. A young human man nodded. Channel open, Captain. Santos took a breath, and when she spoke, her voice carried through every speaker on the ship. Ladies, gentlemen, and honored guests, this is Captain Maria Santos. I apologize, but we're going to have a slight change in our scheduled programming. A passenger vessel is under attack nearby and people are dying. Galactic security forces won't arrive in time, so we're going to help. Kreltak imagined the panic this announcement would cause among the guests. Santos continued. For your safety, please proceed to the main arena on Deck 3. My crew will guide you, I promise you're not in danger. The Starbound Palace, or as she was once known, the Indomitable, is quite capable of handling this situation. Thank you for your patience. She cut the channel and turned to her crew. Tactical, begin combat systems checkout. Engineering, I want full power to shields and weapons. Flight operations, Prep the interceptors. Wait, Kreltak said, his mind reeling. Interceptors? You still have combat craft? Santos glanced at him. Did you really think we got rid of them? Those entertainment venues on the flight decks have retractable floors. Underneath, 2 full squadrons of fighters, ready to launch in under 5 minutes. The decorative panels, retractable armor and weapon covers. The observation deck mounts a naval railgun, 2 railguns actually. Santos smiled grimly. You're quite observant, Ambassador. A crew member called out. Captain, Korak's raiders are hailing us. They're warning us not to approach. Ignore them. Helm, intercept course. Maximum sublight. The ship surged forward. Kreltak grabbed a railing for support. This was no lumbering resort vessel. The Indomitable moved like a predator, fast and deadly. Raider vessels are powering weapons, Tactical reported. Targeting solution acquired. Hold fire. Launch interceptors. I want those raider ships disabled, not destroyed. There are protocols even in combat. Interceptor squadron launching. Through the viewport, Kreltak watched as sections of the ship's hull opened. Combat craft shot out, their engines burning bright. They were sleek, deadly, and moving with perfect coordination. Stella, establish electronic warfare protocols. Jam their communications. Acknowledged. Deploying countermeasures. The holographic display showed the interceptors closing on the raider vessels. The Korak ships tried to respond, but they were clearly confused. They hadn't expected resistance, and certainly not from a resort ship. Railguns charged and locked, Tactical announced. Target their engines only. Precision shots. I want them dead in space, not dead. Aye, Captain. The Indomitable fired. Even in the vacuum of space, Kreltak imagined he could hear it. 2 lances of superheated metal crossed the distance in an instant. The raider vessel's engines exploded in brilliant flashes. Direct hits. Enemy vessels disabled. Interceptors maintain perimeter. Don't let them launch escape pods yet. Marines, you're cleared for boarding action. Get those hostages out. Another panel retracted and Kreltak saw what had been hidden behind it. An entire deployment bay with armed soldiers in power armor. They launched in boarding craft toward the celestial dawn. The entire operation took 18 minutes. The Marines breached the passenger liner, neutralized the raiders, and secured the hostages. Not a single additional casualty. The raider vessels floated helplessly, their crews detained. The celestial dawn was safe. In operations, the crew worked with calm efficiency, coordinating rescue efforts, treating wounded, and arranging transport for the traumatized passengers. Santos finally relaxed slightly. Stella, begin powering down combat systems. Return to hospitality mode. Acknowledged. All guests have been secured in the arena and are receiving refreshments and entertainment while they wait. Several are quite excited by the situation. Santos laughed tiredly. Of course they are. Nothing like a combat operation to liven up a vacation. She turned to Kreltak. Now you know our secret, Ambassador. The Starbound Palace is a fully functional resort. It's also still the Indomitable, ready to defend herself and anyone near her. We never lied. We just didn't volunteer all the details. Kreltak didn't know what to say. His suspicions had been correct, but the reality was even more impressive than he'd imagined. This will cause a political incident. Probably. But those hostages are alive. I can live with some angry politicians if that's the price. The Galactic Council will demand explanations. Santos met his eyes. And we'll give them, along with the footage of 200 people who won't die today because we were here. Let the Council debate all they want. Meanwhile, we'll be serving dinner in an hour. The beef Wellington is excellent. She walked away, barking orders to her crew. Around them, the Indomitable began transforming back into the Starbound Palace. Panels closed. Lights shifted. The warfare vessel disappeared behind the facade of luxury once more, but Kreltak would never forget what he'd witnessed. Humanity had turned a warship into a resort, yes, but they'd never stopped it from being a warship. That was the most human thing he'd ever seen. In the main arena, chaos had transformed into something unexpected. Excitement. Kreltak made his way there after leaving operations, wanting to see how the guests were reacting. He expected panic, anger, maybe demands to be evacuated. Instead, he found beings from dozens of species watching massive screens that showed the rescue operation in real time. A group of Thraken warriors cheered as human marines breached the celestial dawn. Quillian scholars furiously took notes on combat tactics. Even the usually reserved Silicate Collective representatives showed signs of interest, their crystalline bodies pulsing with light. Shalnix rushed over to him. "Ambassador, are you all right? They said there was combat." There was, and it's over. Kreltak settled into a seat watching the screens. The humans won. Decisively. On the display, footage showed the Marine teams moving through the passenger liner. They wore power armor that made them look twice their normal size, but they moved with surprising gentleness when dealing with hostages. A human soldier carefully picked up a small child, some species Kreltak didn't recognize, and carried the terrified being to safety. Another Marine provided medical treatment to an injured Vryn passenger. "They're good at this," Shalnix observed. "Very good. Too good," Kreltak muttered. This wasn't improvised. They've trained for this scenario. A human staff member approached with a tray. "Refreshments, Ambassador. We have Vryn spiced tea and some pastries that should be compatible with your digestion." The contrast was surreal, watching combat footage while being served tea and cookies. But Kreltak accepted gratefully. The tea was perfect, exactly the right temperature and spice blend. "Attention, guests." Stella's voice rang out, back to her cheerful tone. "I'm pleased to announce that all hostages from the Celestial Dawn have been successfully rescued. The raiders have been detained and will be turned over to proper authorities. The the Starbound Palace will be returning to our scheduled position shortly. Thank you for your patience." Applause broke out across the arena. Not just polite applause, but genuine enthusiasm. The Thraken warriors were particularly vocal, their deep voices booming approval. The screens shifted to show Captain Santos addressing the crew. "Excellent work, everyone." Textbook operation. Medical teams prioritize the wounded passengers. I want them receiving care within 10 minutes. Security, make sure those raiders are properly secured. And someone tell the kitchen staff we're going to have about 140 extra guests for dinner. Let's show them some hospitality. More applause. Kreltak noticed tears on some faces. Beings whose species would be on that passenger liner, perhaps. They understood how close those people had come to dying. A Quillian delegate approached Kreltak. Her name was Scholar Teshni, and she specialized in military history. "Ambassador, you witnessed the operation directly?" "I did. Fascinating. The efficiency, the coordination. This wasn't a civilian crew playing at military operations. These are trained warriors operating a fully functional warship." "Yes. The implications are troubling. If humanity can disguise military vessels as civilian craft, what prevents other species from doing the same? It undermines the entire concept of neutral civilian space." Kreltak had been thinking the same thing. "We should discuss this at the council." "Agreed, though." Teshni's tentacles gestured at the celebrating guests. "Public opinion may complicate matters. The humans just saved hundreds of lives. That carries significant weight." Over the next 2 hours, the Celestial Dawn passengers were transferred to the Starbound Palace. Kreltak watched from an observation deck as shuttle after shuttle arrived. The passengers looked traumatized, exhausted, but alive. Human medical staff met each shuttle, offering treatment, comfort, and guidance. One shuttle carried mostly children, a school group from several species apparently on a cultural exchange trip. They emerged scared and crying. Human crew members knelt to their level, speaking softly, offering stuffed animals and warm blankets. Within minutes, some of the children were actually smiling. "They're good at this too," Shalnix said quietly. "Not just fighting, but caring." "Humans contain multitudes," Kreltak replied. "It's what makes them dangerous. They can be warriors and healers in the same breath." Later that evening, Captain Santos made an announcement inviting all guests, including the rescued passengers, to a special dinner service. "No charge," she said. "You've been through enough. Let us take care of you." The main dining hall was packed. Kreltak found himself seated near a family from the Celestial Dawn, 2 adults and 3 children of the Pelter species. The children stared at everything with wide eyes, still processing their ordeal. A human server approached their table. His name tag read Miguel. He smiled warmly. Welcome. Tonight's menu has options from 30 different worlds. For the young ones, might I suggest the Terran chicken fingers? They're very popular with children. The smallest Pelter child, probably equivalent to a human 6-year-old, spoke in a tiny voice. Are we safe now? Miguel knelt down, meeting the child at eye level. You're absolutely safe. This ship has the best shields in the galaxy, the best crew, and nobody, and I mean nobody, is going to hurt you here. Captain's orders. Promise? I promise. In fact, after dinner, if your parents say it's okay, I can show you where we keep the fighter craft. Would you like that? The child nodded eagerly, fear already fading. Kreltak watched this interaction and understood something important. The humans hadn't just converted a warship into a resort. They'd created something that could be both, switching between roles as needed, a sword that could also be a shield, a fortress that welcomed guests. The food arrived, and it was exceptional. Whatever else could be said about humans, they took hospitality seriously. The rescued passengers ate hungrily, probably their first real meal since the attack. Human staff moved among the tables, checking on everyone, offering desserts and drinks, treating trauma victims like honored guests. Ambassador Chen appeared at Kreltak's table. May I sit? Please. She settled into a chair, looking tired but satisfied. I imagine you have questions. Many. But first I want to acknowledge something. Your crew saved hundreds of lives today. That matters more than political complications. Thank you, though I suspect the political complications are about to become significant. You're not wrong. The Council will demand answers. Some species will call this deception. Chen sighed. We told the truth. The Starbound Palace is a fully licensed, fully functional resort. We passed every inspection. Met every civilian standard. We just didn't remove the military systems. Technically, we never said we did. That's a thin distinction. Maybe. But here's the reality, Ambassador. We spent billions converting this ship, trained hundreds of crew members, created something unique in the galaxy. Did you really think we'd make it helpless? Did anyone honestly believe humans would build a massive luxury resort and just hope nothing bad would ever happen? Kreltak had to admit she had a point. No, I suppose not. We prepared for the worst while hoping for the best. That's very human. Maybe it's manipulative or deceptive from some perspectives. But those passengers over there? She gestured at the rescued beings. They're alive because we prepared. I can live with being called deceptive if that's the price. A commotion near the entrance drew their attention. Captain Santos entered, still in her tactical uniform, surrounded by some of the rescued passengers. They were thanking her, some crying with gratitude. She looked uncomfortable with the attention but accepted it gracefully. One of the Peltar parents approached Santos, holding their smallest child. Through a translator, they said, "You saved my baby. All our babies. How can we ever repay you?" Santos touched the child's head gently. "Keep them safe. Raise them well. Tell them that even in darkness someone will come to help. That's payment enough." Watching this scene, Kreltak felt his perspective shifting. Yes, the humans had been less than fully honest about their ship's capabilities. Yes, there would be political consequences. But they'd also demonstrated something important: power used in service of protecting the innocent. The Vryn understood strength. They respected warriors. But they'd always kept warfare and daily life separate. Humans seemed to blend them seamlessly. Soldiers who could fight brutally one moment and serve tea gently the next. The Galactic Council meets in 3 days. Kreltak said to Chen. You should prepare a statement. Already working on it. Will the Vryn support us? He considered carefully. His people valued honesty, but they also valued results. I will recommend that we support your actions in this specific incident. The broader questions about military vessels disguised as civilian craft, those will require longer discussion. That's fair. Chen stood, offering a traditional Vryn gesture of respect. Four-armed salute. Thank you, Ambassador. Enjoy your dinner. As she walked away, Shalnix leaned close. You're supporting them? I'm acknowledging reality. Humans have shown us something today, not just their military capability. We already knew they were formidable. They showed us their philosophy. They refused to be only one thing. Resort or warship. Warriors or hosts, they're both and they make it work. Is that wisdom or madness? Kreltak watched Captain Santos talking with rescued passengers, Miguel serving dessert to frightened children, and human crew members who had been soldiers an hour ago, now acting as waiters. Perhaps it's both. And perhaps that's exactly what the galaxy needed. The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with arguments. 1 week had passed since the incident at Celestia Prime, and every delegate seemed to have an opinion. Kreltak sat in his designated area, listening to the chaos and feeling very tired. "This is unacceptable," roared the Craven delegate, his multiple heads speaking in unison. "Humans converted a military vessel and claimed it was civilian. This violates the spirit of galactic peace accords." "They saved lives," countered the Pelta representative, her voice shaking with emotion. "My nephew was on that ship. He's alive because of human intervention. The method doesn't justify the deception," argued scholar Teshni. "If every species begins hiding weapons on civilian vessels, neutral space becomes meaningless." The debate had raged for hours. Some supported humanity's actions, others condemned them. The chamber was divided almost evenly, which meant nothing would be resolved quickly. High Arbiter Zex then, leader of the council, raised his primary manipulator for silence. The ancient being's patience was clearly wearing thin. "Enough. We will hear from the human delegation. Ambassador Chen, please present your statement." Chen rose, composed despite the hostile atmosphere. "Thank you, High Arbiter. Humanity wishes to address the concerns raised about the UCNS Indomitable, now known as the Starbound Palace." She activated a holographic display. "When we announced our conversion project, we stated we were transforming a military vessel into a resort and entertainment complex. This was and remains true. The Starbound Palace is a fully licensed civilian facility. We passed every required inspection by neutral third parties. Every system meets or exceeds commercial standards. But you kept the weapons," someone shouted. "We retained defensive and offensive capabilities, yes," Chen acknowledged calmly. "At no point did we claim otherwise. Review the transcripts from our announcement. We said we converted the vessel. We never said we removed its ability to defend itself." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Chen continued. "Human history taught us hard lessons about being unprepared. We've learned that peace requires strength to maintain. When we invested billions of credits and years of work into the Starbound Palace, we decided it would be foolish to make it helpless." She changed the display to show legal documents. "Every weapon system on the Starbound Palace is properly registered with the Galactic Military Registry. Our crew maintains both civilian hospitality licenses and military certifications. The ship carries insurance for both commercial operations and defensive actions. Legally, we are in full compliance." "Technically legal, perhaps," Teshni said. "But morally questionable. You created a military vessel disguised as a civilian target." "No," Chen corrected. "We created a civilian vessel that refuses to be a victim. There's a difference. The Starbound Palace doesn't pretend to be helpless to lure attackers. It simply doesn't advertise its capabilities to every passing ship." Another delegate spoke up. "But this sets a dangerous precedent. What prevents others from hiding warships as civilian craft?" Chen smiled slightly. "Nothing prevents it, and frankly, it probably happens already. The difference is we're being transparent about what we've done after demonstrating why it matters. We're not hiding anymore. We're showing the galaxy that civilian doesn't have to mean defenseless." She pulled up new footage on the display. "This is what happened after the rescue operation. The passengers from the Celestial Dawn received medical care, counseling, and free accommodations. Traumatized children were given toys and comfort. Injured beings got the best treatment available. We didn't just save lives, we took care of them afterward." The footage showed human crew members working tirelessly. Medical staff treating wounds, counselors helping traumatized passengers, kitchen staff preparing meals for dietary requirements, engineers repairing damaged personal belongings. The contrast between the brutal efficiency of the combat operation and the gentle care afterward was striking. "Humans contain contradictions," Chen said. "We can be warriors and healers, protectors and hosts. We refuse to choose between strength and kindness. The Starbound Palace represents this philosophy. It's a place where beings from all species can relax, enjoy themselves, and feel absolutely safe, because it has the capability to guarantee that safety." She looked around the chamber. 243 beings are alive today because the Starbound Palace was there and capable of helping. I will not apologize for that. I will not apologize for building something that can protect innocent lives while also bringing different cultures together. High Arbiter ZX then leaned forward. What guarantee do we have that humanity won't use this vessel for military aggression? The same guarantee you have for any species with military capability, Chen replied. Treaties, mutual interest, and the fact that attacking civilian populations would unite the entire galaxy against us. The Starbound Palace exists to protect and host, not to conquer. She paused, then added, but I'll be honest. If raiders attack civilians near our vessel, we will intervene. If pirates threaten innocent lives, we will respond. If anyone attempts to harm guests under our care, we will defend them with every weapon at our disposal. That's not aggression. That's responsibility. The chamber fell silent. Chen had essentially admitted the ship would act as both resort and guardian, and she seemed completely unapologetic about it. Kreltak rose to speak. High Arbiter, may I offer the Vryn perspective? Proceed, Ambassador Kreltak. My people are warriors. We understand strength and respect those who wield it effectively. What humans have done with the Starbound Palace is not deception, it's adaptation. They took a tool designed for war and found a way to use it for peace while maintaining the ability to protect that peace. He gestured at the display showing rescued passengers. I was present during the incident. I watched human crew members transform from hospitality staff to soldiers in minutes. I saw combat efficiency that would impress any military force, but I also saw those same humans comforting frightened children afterward, serving meals to traumatized families, and offering shelter to beings they'd never met before. Kreltak's voice strengthened. Humans don't see contradiction where we do. They see synthesis. A warrior who cannot show mercy is just a brute. A host who cannot defend guests is negligent. The Starbound Palace combines both, and perhaps that's exactly what the galaxy needs. The Vryn support humanity's actions in this instance, he concluded. We propose that the Council formally recognize the Starbound Palace as a dual-purpose vessel. Civilian resort, with military defensive capability. Create a new classification if needed, but punishing humans for saving lives seems counterproductive. Several delegates spoke in support. The Peltar representative stood with tears in her eyes. My family is alive because of the Starbound Palace. I don't care what you call the ship. I care that it was there when we needed help. Even Scholar Teshny, who had criticized the humans, seemed conflicted. I still have concerns about precedent, but I cannot deny the positive outcome in this case. High Arbiter Zex then conferred with the Council leadership for several minutes. Finally, he spoke. The Galactic Council will vote on the following resolution. The UCNS Indomitable, operating as the Starbound Palace, acted within legal parameters when defending civilian lives. While the Council encourages transparency regarding vessel capabilities, no laws were broken. The incident will not result in sanctions against humanity. However, he continued, the Council will establish new guidelines for dual-purpose vessels. Any ship operating in civilian capacity while maintaining military systems must register as such and follow specific protocols. This applies to all species equally. The vote was called. After some deliberation, the resolution passed with a substantial majority. Chen nodded gracefully. Humanity accepts these terms. Will comply with all new guidelines and appreciate the Council's wisdom in recognizing the complexity of the situation. As the session ended, Kreltak approached Chen in the corridor outside. Congratulations. That could have gone much worse. Thanks to your support, Chen said. The Vryn carry significant weight in military matters. Your endorsement helped. I spoke the truth. Nothing more, he paused. Although I'm curious about one thing. How many other human vessels have similar capabilities? Chen's smile was enigmatic. That would be telling, Ambassador. Let's just say humanity believes in being prepared. I thought as much. Kreltak couldn't help but laugh. Your species is either brilliant or insane, why not both? Over the following weeks, something interesting happened. Bookings for the Starbound Palace tripled. Beings from across the galaxy wanted to experience the resort that could fight back. Some came for the novelty. Others came because they genuinely felt safer knowing their vacation destination could protect them. The human staff handled the increased attention with their usual efficiency. Stella cheerfully managed reservations while maintaining combat readiness. Captain Santos supervised both hospitality operations and tactical drills. The crew seamlessly switched between serving cocktails and maintaining weapon systems. Kreltak returned for a second visit. Br.